Thank you. Thank you all for joining us today. We want to welcome you to our fourth and final session in our PD series. And today we're going to focus on how to diagnose and plan to support your students in your school with learning acceleration. My name is Thelma Perry. I'm a senior manager here at TNTP, and I'm coming to you from home of Elvis, Memphis, Tennessee. And as you participate in the learning today, you will also have an opportunity to engage with my fellow TNT peers that you see here listed on the screen. And you will also have the awesome privilege of engaging with my wonderful co-facilitator, Margaret. Margaret, would you like to unmute at this time and introduce yourself, please?
Thank you, Thelma. And I think that the honor is mine to co-facilitate with you, but I'm so looking forward to connecting with everyone today and getting to know you more and hear all of your great ideas. And I'll hand it quickly back to you, Thelma. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So as I stated, you're also going to, if you have any questions today, please feel free to private message Tabitha, and you see Tabitha's name listed here, and she will be able to answer any questions that you may have as the session moves on, because we will not be able to, Margaret and I will not be able to necessarily pause in the middle. So I want to pass it back to you, Margaret.
Thanks, Thelma, and thank you, Tabitha, in the chat. You can see Tabitha said hello there, so definitely direct those one-off questions to her. You can see how fast our chat is flying, which we love and is incredible. But of course, it means that we might miss your questions, and we certainly don't want to. So definitely connect with Tabitha for any one-off questions. So with that, we know, as all great educators know, it's important to agree on shared norms before we start our work together. Please read through our shared norms on the slide and share in the chat one that you would like to keep top of mind during our session today. Thanks, Kelly, for getting us started. Community. And if you were here yesterday, maybe you want to think of try a different one on for size today. Know better, do better. Absolutely. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Nicole. Thanks, Ashley. Joy, love it. Joelle, curiosity. Perfect. Thank you so much. A great idea to jot that down. And also keep in mind that we do have a note catcher that we'll put in the chat, and that is going to be a resource that we use throughout our session today, and is a great place to capture your notes, such as the norm that you would like to keep top of mind. Also keep in mind to please hold on to your completed note catcher as evidence of participation, and check in with your school leader to see if you can use this time for PD hours or any other additional incentive that's based upon your district or school. And so with that all said, please do your best to stay on video, especially during breakout sessions. When we all join into breakout sessions and we can come off video and share our thinking, this really helps maximize our learning from each other. One other norm to note, more housekeeping, is that when we go into breakouts, please do let Zoom bring you back in rather than leaving the breakout. That's just a shared norm we can agree upon as well. And with that, please do continue to stay on mute and lean into the chat to share out as well, which it seems like you're all doing a really excellent job with so far. So thank you for that. And with that, let's hear a little more about TNTP from Thelma.
Absolutely. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time today, I'm going to give some brief background on TNTP, as well as background on the acceleration maps. For those of you who have been with us the entire time, thank you for your superb participation. We're going to be brief here. TNTP was founded in 1997 by a group of teachers who believe that all students deserve to have great instruction, and there was a particular focus on equity for students who have historically been underserved by our school systems. Today, TNP focuses our work on three major areas that you see here on the slide: rigorous academics, talented people, and creating supportive environments. Also, just some background on the partnership with TNTP and DESE. We've partnered on several initiatives in the past, such as the Teacher Diversification Program and Deeper Learning. DESE and TNTP have closely collaborated to ensure that the roadmaps that you see before you are aligned with your unique needs and your students' unique needs in mind. Also to collaborate with those existing tools and resources that you have also been provided with by DESE. So just again, a little bit of information about the acceleration maps. They exist in two forms. There's a teacher version and there's also a leader version. Those were designed to provide you with a focused and a phased approach to supporting your students in the 21-22 school year. They are laid out to be the foundation for learning acceleration over the next several years. These roadmaps are representative of any other school year in that you always start with diagnosing and planning with your current state, then launching your year, monitoring your progress, and finally reflecting along the way. Although this year is not the typical year in a lot of ways, we're not going to completely ask that you reinvent the wheel here. The learning acceleration approach is going to support your students into coming into grade level instruction and also support their well-being. Today, we will be discussing quite a few things that you may already do in some shape, form, or fashion, things that perhaps you've already done or things that you've been meaning to do, but you just haven't prioritized yet. So we're going to support you in the planning phase and to ensure that you are able to prioritize those things that are most important for your students in your school to make accelerated learning a reality this year. So let's pause here and go to the chat box. Let's make sure that we have a common understanding of accelerated learning. If you would, take just a moment to chat one or two words or phrase that you associate with accelerated learning. Thank you, just in time, grade level, moving forward, just in time, supports, scaffolding, excellent. Thank you. This chat box is zooming. You are on fire. Absolutely. Just as you are noting, we know that the word acceleration does not mean to go faster through a curriculum. It's about providing those just-in-time supports that allow students to access grade level content, as many of you have alluded to in the chat box. In other words, if a student hasn't mastered an earlier skill that's required to complete grade appropriate assignments, the student receives those just-in-time supports in learning acceleration. And they're given that in the right amount of time and the right amount of supports to help them move forward so that they can access grade level content through scaffolds and coordinated services. Remediation, on the other hand, that's about putting kids in below grade level content to fill in those previous gaps. And this is a typical approach, but it's actually better suited for work from earlier grades. And unfortunately, it won't come close to catching your students up, and it actually will compound the problem. In TNTP's recent study, The Opportunity Myth, we found that remediation, though well-intended, practically guarantees that students will actually lose academic ground. And it also reinforces a misguided belief that some students can't do the work. This is a vicious cycle, and this cycle often involves those disproportionately vulnerable students of color, low income, and special learning needs. With remediation, specific groups of students unfortunately don't get access and opportunities to access grade level content that will support their learning of unfinished work so that they can stay on grade level. In other words, basically, if you're doubling down on your current strategies to catch students up, it's only going to widen the opportunity and the achievement gaps. So with that in mind, we're going to take an opportunity here to look at our objectives for today, and I'm going to pass it over to Margaret.
Thank you so much, Thelma. I appreciate that. So we have our objectives here for today. If you could please take 1 minute to read through them and then share in the chat a word or phrase that you would like to focus on during our time together today. Thanks, Caitlin. Pacing, Kyle. Thanks, Jennifer. Formative assessment. Calendar, excellent. Perfect. Embedded assessments. Thank you so much for these. And with that, I would also love to just share, we'll share the note catcher again, but please definitely do make a copy or download that if you haven't had the chance to do so already. As we work through our objectives today, we will be using these guiding questions to help move our thinking and conversations forward. Let's start here with our first question. What is my short and long-term assessment plan as we think about the upcoming school year? And so to get ourselves oriented into thinking about assessments, let's start by capturing some of our current assessment types. In your note catcher, which will continue to populate in the chat in case we miss it, take the next 2 minutes to identify what assessment or assessments are currently being used in your school, in your classroom, or in your district. Feel free to list summative, formative, benchmark, screeners, or any additional assessments that you may be aware of. It may be helpful if you teach more than one subject area or more than one grade level to focus in on just one. And if you're not sure which assessments will be used, consider the ones you've used in the past or are otherwise familiar with. We'll take the next 2 minutes to capture these assessments in our note catcher. And so for the next 2 minutes until about 3:17, you can feel free to work with your camera off and just listen for my voice to bring us back together. And I appreciate, it looks like a lot of folks are just jumping right into the chat, which I really appreciate so far. So we've got map testing, DIBELS, the MCAS pre and post test to assess growth by selected group, map testing. Thank you, Deb. Perfect. So it looks like there's a lot of trends in terms of DIBELS, map testing across the board. Anna, thank you for sharing that as well. Formative and summative teacher-made materials. Absolutely. So today we'll be discussing which type of assessments are most impactful to drive accelerated learning. And then in the second portion of our time, we're going to be talking about how you can use your assessments in your instruction to accelerate learning for your students. And we'll head on into the next slide. And with that, I would love to just invite everyone to ensure that you're on mute so we don't hear anything in the background that you don't want us to be hearing. So thank you for just double checking that you're on mute right now. Appreciate that. Okay, so we're going to start with a turn and talk. Now that we have shared out some of the assessments that we already have in place or that we've used in the past, we're going to do a quick reflection and head into breakouts to discuss the question, and we'll put it in the chat as well. What barriers going into the 21-22 school year do you anticipate in terms of assessments and just-in-time scaffolds? What barriers do you anticipate? And just keep in mind that this will be a somewhat quick breakout. So we'll be in conversation for about 3 minutes, and it can be totally open forum to share out any barriers that you anticipate so that we can begin to identify solutions as we move into our session today. Welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you so much for engaging in that conversation. And I would love to invite a couple of colleagues that I spoke with today, starting with, let's see, Danielle, would you be willing to come to the mic and kick us off in terms of barriers that you anticipated? And then Anita S., would you be willing to be on deck to talk about some solutions that you brainstormed?
Sure, so I'll start. This is Danielle Gray. I teach second grade. And right before this training, I actually had a meeting with the curriculum acceleration team from my school. And we talked about how one of the barriers for assessments, especially at the beginning of the year for pre-assessments, might be consistency, vertical consistency with how we are administering the assessments across grade levels. So we were talking specifically about a literacy assessment and how if in first grade they're reading the assessment out loud to the kids and then allowing them time to answer it, does that mean that grades 2, 3, and 4 should also do it verbally, or should we kind of take it more into discretion based on the students' developmental levels? So that will be a conversation for sure moving forward. And we also talked about the fear of over-testing students all at once at the beginning of the year. There's a fine line between getting that immediate data so you know how to make those small groups right away and how to jump right into the instruction that the kiddos need right from the get-go, but you also want them to have that sense of welcoming and belonging, and that school is a safe, happy place where it's not just all tests all at once. So finding that balance is, I think, a challenge every year, especially this year after the pandemic.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Appreciate that. And I think that we can see in the chat, a lot of folks also agree. I'll turn it over to Anita. And in the meantime, please be willing to share in the chat some of the barriers that you discussed or solutions that you discussed in your breakout.
So I'm Anita Slattery. I work as a curriculum instructional math coach for Dennis Yarmouth grades 4 through 8. And we use the RECA math program, and we're very excited that we just got a grant, which includes pre-assessments that really identifies what students need to know, just-in-time learning, so that they're able to be successful with grade level objectives, math objectives. And you know, that work will really help us keep the kids on grade level and moving forward. So this is just brand new to us, but it really is just-in-time learning. And we're just really focusing on what it is students need to know in order to be successful with what math they're learning at that time.
Thank you so much, Anita, for coming off mute to share a solution thinking about pre-assessments. And that's something that we'll really be discussing in more depth later on in our session today. So thank you for previewing that. So we will be using a lot of different terminology around assessments. So we just wanted to pause here and solidify our language to make sure we're on the same page. We tend to use the term assessments as a catch-all to refer to the variety of assessments, as you can see here on this slide. Diagnostics are typically given at the start of the year when a student joins your school community for the first time, whereas formative assessments inform how we plan and scaffold our instruction. And summatives, meanwhile, measure progress and show us the path forward. We know, however, that for learning acceleration to truly take hold, we must frequently provide formative assessments, which can be short, that ultimately provide those clear data snapshots for the next step of instruction. And in fact, works to prevent remediation by revealing what students can do so that we can move forward from an asset-based perspective. So we're now going to look at assessment type and frequency and how it relates to learning acceleration. Here we can see a very brief overview of two major assessment forms, benchmark and interim assessments. The major difference is that benchmarks or screeners provide a high-level snapshot that we can use in very broad strokes, whereas interim assessments we can use more concretely in relation to a unit that we're teaching or our subject matter individually. And we can see on the next slide that there are a few different ways that we can implement daily data-based actions. I would love to invite Donna from TNTP, if you would please be willing to read the classroom instruction and student follow-up for us, please.
Thanks, Margaret. So as you can see, there are a few ways we can monitor classroom instruction by providing entry or exit tickets for our students. We might observe them while they're working. We can circulate with a clipboard and take some notes on what they're doing. We can engage in discourse with them. Other ways to check for understanding and progress monitor daily. And then there are some opportunities for student follow-up. So for example, we can discuss our findings with students either individually, in small groups, or in whole groups. If we have additional service providers and or other stakeholders, we can also invite them into the conversation.
Thank you so much, Donna. Appreciate hearing your voice in the conversation. And I would love to invite Greg to the mic from TNTP to tell us a little about PLCs and data teaming.
Sure. So ideally, school environments ensure there's dedicated time for PLC or data meetings with grade teams during the school day. All teachers, including literacy specialists, ELL teachers, special education teachers, etc., should be present and engaged with the daily or weekly student data to create action-oriented cycles.
Thank you so much, Greg, for reading as well. Appreciate your voice here too so much. So to the collective, if we could just head back quickly to that slide to please share in the chat an idea or item from these suggestions that Greg and Donna shared, an idea or item that stood out to you that you would like to use moving forward. And if you could put that into the chat so that we can see some of those great ideas come up. PLCs, absolutely. Data teams. PLCs engaging in discourse, co-planning, absolutely. Exit tickets, dedicated meetings, common planning, co-planning, excellent. Thank you so much. Engaging in discourse, want to underscore that for certain. So thank you so much for taking a moment to think about techniques that will be useful for your own students and your own setting. And so now, when we look at all the possible assessments, and like Danielle said, sometimes there's so many to think about, systems, interim, and daily assessments, we know that they're absolutely critical to creating strong outcomes for our students, but there are certain things that they should and conversely should not do as well. For example, they should provide just-in-time information, a specific approach. They should be embedded in the curriculum and come from an asset-based orientation to build from. So for example, what can students do and how can we use that to inform our teaching and our next steps? On the other hand, they should not go back into remediation, which can certainly be tempting if students have missed in-person instruction, but as Thelma revealed, is actually detrimental to student progress and student growth. They should not map students' deficits and act as a gatekeeper to grade level instruction. Grade level instruction should be tier 1 for all students across the board. And so with that, which one of these should-dos stands out to you? Please share that in the chat for us as well. Thank you, Miriam, for that. Thanks, Sarah. Just-in-time information. Thanks, Katie. That asset orientation is huge. Just in time. Embedded. Thank you all so much for taking more time to process and think about what resonates with you from these materials. And so if you were with us, just quick show of thumbs if you were with us for our session, our incredible session with Irene and Thelma yesterday. Hopefully many of you were, but that's okay if you weren't. I see you, Tara. Awesome. Glad you were here, Lori. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming back, Amanda. Appreciate you, Caitlin. So if you were here with us for our perfect, and the chat is on fire. This group is amazing. So like I said, if you were here with us for our session yesterday, Irene did a wonderful job explaining more about the value and possibility within learning acceleration. So acceleration-minded educators' approach to instruction is that of prioritizing grade level instruction. Rather than engaging in those remediating strategies, educators rely on concepts similar to just-in-time instruction that takes unfamiliar concepts or concepts from previous grade levels and uses them to scaffold students into grade level learning. It's critical to then be collecting data in the forms we discussed, and more if you have them, and then using potential flex days in your units or your curriculum, right, to provide those just-in-time scaffolds and adjustments. Of course, the beauty of just-in-time scaffolds is that they don't always require a whole day's worth of instruction because we all know time is of the essence. When we know what the student can do and move from that asset-based orientation, as many of us just shared in the chat, we may only have to acutely modify a portion of a day's lesson to provide grade level instruction and move away from remediation. So with that in mind, we can zoom out, and on the next slide, we can look at an example of how this might be applied to a grade 5 setting. How can we take our daily data and infuse that into our long-term planning to ensure that we're addressing needs, but not overly remediating to the student's detriment? So part of the work here today too is to understand where the students are coming from and what students do need to know moving forward. So as an example here, we can see the amount of time invested in each of these major focus domains for grade 5. Grade 5, as some of us here today might know, is the bridge builder for deepening the conceptual understanding of fractions, as well as operations and algebraic thinking in grade 4. And it's also essential to building the conceptual understandings for the number systems coming up in the following year of grade 6. So acceleration in math specifically demands a concentration on understanding the marriage of the major work of each grade with the prerequisite skills and concepts building this into the year. An acceleration-minded teacher looks at the grade level content they need to cover and considers what prior knowledge or understanding they might need to explore, as well as where the student is headed. And that's certainly true, not just in math, but in ELA and all subject matters as well. Thank you. And so now that we've examined our assessment systems, as well as how daily data snapshots support learning acceleration in our classrooms, we're going to connect this back to the roadmap, specifically the roadmap priority of monitoring understanding. And we'll specifically look through the lens of phase 1, which we're in right now, and phase 2, which brings us into October. So the roadmap suggests that one best practice we can lean into, besides looking at available assessment data, is doing planning. And many of you already identified that as well. Planning ahead, planning into our calendar, and trying to do as much of that work on the back end as we can to plan for learning acceleration. So as we get ready to welcome our students, and I know it's just around the bend, our students and families back, we want to hold that sense of urgency when thinking about assessments, while also honoring the experiences that everyone has undergone and perhaps is still going through this past year. So before we begin goal setting and planning on the next slide, we want to identify some research-based best practices for diagnosing and assessing students, specifically for learning acceleration. So one point that we want to really lean into is to use high quality instructional materials if and whenever possible. Ed reports, as many of us know, vets resources, and diagnostics are often built into these resources that they've already targeted. So as Danielle, thank you again for sharing, identified that diagnosing or over-diagnosing everything is actually the equivalent of diagnosing nothing. This is a rabbit hole for many well-intentioned educators because we have been trained that data-driven is the best kind of instruction. And yes, data-driven instruction is critical, but the data needs to be usable, aligned to the curriculum, and not take more and more time away from our students and from that grade level instruction. It also needs to be formative and frequent, which we'll talk more about techniques soon. And lastly, assessments need to be for learning. They don't need to be large productions, right? What already exists in your materials that might give you information about what students can do and cannot do yet. And so with that, we're going to begin this planning process now, thinking specifically about a goal that we have for our own assessment cycle as we start the school year. An example goal for instance, might be around doing a data analysis from map testing from last spring with the students that you know you might have. Or perhaps if you don't know your students yet, another example goal might be to start every lesson with a brief formative assessment and thinking about your content and what that might look like. There's a lot of room to modify this goal based on your teaching style and your students. You also might have brought curricular resources for the early units if you were able to do that in the pre-work. And if you did, you might review these to help set those goals. You can capture goals in two places. One place would be the note catcher. There's space to put 2 goals in. And another might be to actually put it into the calendar tool, which we will share in the chat. The calendar tool is a part of the roadmap as well. So we'll take the next 3 minutes to begin planning our goals for assessment. Again, you can work with your camera off and we'll head into breakouts afterwards to share out our goals with our colleagues. Just listen for my voice to bring us back together, and we'll see you soon. I'll invite everyone back to the camera now, please. And with that, before we transition into the next slide, actually, we'd just like to direct everyone to the chat where we will paste a few more resources, including a link to the slide deck, which a few folks had requested. So please check out the chat if the slide deck is something that you need. And so we can move forward into the next slide. We will head into breakouts here for 3 minutes. And so in breakouts, I would love for everyone to share the goal that you identified and how this goal supports learning acceleration. And I'll put that question in the chat as well so you can refer back to it in breakouts. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much. Lots of great ideas and conversations happening. And we're going to mix it up a little bit for this share out. If you would please put your name in the chat if you would like to share out your goal and how it supports learning acceleration. So just go ahead and put your name in the chat and we'll know to invite you to the mic. And if that's not for you, you can share your thinking. Just put your answer directly in the chat so we can all see your great ideas. But great, Kristen, if you could start us, or Christine, excuse me, if you could start us off, please.
Hi, so in my group, we actually talked about, we all like the idea of doing a formative assessment at the beginning of the lesson. And I've never done one at the very beginning. But we talked about the fact that sometimes when you do an exit ticket, it seems like most of the kids really got the lesson, and then you go in the next day and then you start your lesson for the day and you're just like, wait a minute, what happened? Because they're kind of like deer in the headlights. So we wonder, you know, did they really understand the content or did they just remember what we had been practicing? So giving a formative at the beginning would probably give us a lot of really great information.
Christine, thank you so much for sharing that out. It is the perfect segue into the next portion of our time together, thinking about formative assessments at the beginning of our lessons. So appreciate that, appreciate the work done so far. And with that, over to Thelma.
Okay, so let's begin to transition to our final objective for today, which is how we can strategically plan for use those assessments to plan for accelerated learning. But before we do that, we're going to ask you at this time to change your Zoom name. And as you can see, there's assistance here on the screen with doing it. To be able to do that, you will need to do the follow, choose either option 1 or option 2. We would really like to set you up for success. So you want to rename yourselves by starting with the phrase second grade math, grade 5 math, grade 5 ELA, or grade 8 math. It's very important that you do that. For me, the example would be I would do 8 math and then my name so that the Zoom manager would know to put me in 8th grade math. We know that this may, some of you may not teach any of these subjects, and that's okay. So we ask that you just select an area that's most relevant or close to what you actually do teach. And if you need some assistance at this time, please feel free to just put a note in there. But there are 2 ways that you can do this. The first one is simply to open up the participant tab at the bottom, find your name, and look to the right, you'll see the word rename. If you'll right click on that, a window will pop up which allows you to rename yourself. The other way you can do that is on the actual picture, your actual visual for your video, you should see 3 dots, the ellipses. If you will click on that, that will also give you an opportunity to rename. So I'm going to pause here for a few seconds to give you an opportunity to rename yourselves. When you're done, if you would chat the word done in the chat box. I see several of you are indicating that you are done. So we're going to then go ahead and move on. So what tools should you use when you're planning to diagnose for student learning and uncover unfinished learning? Please chat some of the tools that you currently use at your school to diagnose student learning or to uncover unfinished learning. What's most effective? So I'm seeing DIBELS, map testing, pre-testing, grade level assessments, exit tickets. As usual, you all are on fire. This is the hottest group that I have ever worked with. You are absolutely dynamic. Thank you so much for sharing. So as you look here, we'll think about those tools. And as you're sharing those tools, we recognize that we spent a large portion of our time today talking about and thinking about ways that we can use formative assessments as data snapshots. So we're going to introduce a technique to you in a few minutes on how you can use these assessments to actually enhance your own instruction. And as we prepare to head into the next school year, we know that there are going to be some unknowns about our students, and we're going to need to get some more information so that we can provide that quality instruction. We understand that there are many things that happened during the pandemic that it has affected all of us, and so we want to be well prepared. So as you think about the tools that you shared and you listed in the chat box as tools that you use, we're going to listen carefully as we move forward to see how we can actually use those tools to prepare. So you already know that assessments are used to push grade level content and identify that high quality instructional material. And we want to use those materials to yield the highest gains for our classroom assessments. So we want to talk about not necessarily diagnostic tools now, but diagnostic tasks, which can be used more on a day-to-day basis to help us make those informative decisions around instruction. So when we're thinking about diagnostic tasks, you see here, here's a quick way for you to gather information from the targeted class that you're looking at or that targeted lesson. So let's pause here for a second just so that you see that there are 2 types here, 2 places that you want to look in terms of your diagnostic tasks. I'll give you a moment to simply read the slide. And you see that diagnostic tools are just a quick way to gather information. It's not this big, long, formal activity. We can move on. So when we provide those diagnostic tasks, it gives us an opportunity to get a pulse check on what our students know, but it also helps us to target our teaching to the grade level content. And it also gives us insight into those just-in-time scaffolds that specific students will actually need in order to avoid this idea of remediation and try to remove that. Sometimes that may seem daunting to you, and it's really hard. It seems like a daunting task to do every day, but there are actually 3 very simple steps in this process. And we're going to have an opportunity later to actually practice these so that you can develop that skill of predictive teaching and being able to predict exactly what you need. This tool is going to help you with that and ensure that you are giving those students the highest quality instruction based on their specific needs, and most importantly, so that you will be able to accelerate learning. So you see the 3 steps here, step 1, step 2, and step 3. Let's take a deeper look at each of these steps. So let's look at step 1, which is do. We have to do the work. Yes, that's what I said, literally meaning you as the teacher, we have to do the work. And you see here some guiding questions that will help you while you're actually doing the work. What is the most important step? The most important thing here in doing the work is that you do it so that you do it from the student's lens, so you can understand exactly how students would interact with the task that you put before them. You want to have the student's perspective. Let's look at the next step. In the next step, that's sort. It's simply just what it says. And there are multiple ways of sorting. But here's one that you see on the screen, and it's very simple. It's one of those where you sort into categories of got it, almost got it, and not yet. This is not a black and white process all the time. It's contingent upon different situations, and there's always those gray areas. It's really a matter of whether or not you are early in the unit or if you're later in the unit. If you're in the early parts of the units, then the materials may look different, and you may have to think about more closely where you are in order to get them where you want them to be in the lesson. But you always want to consider where you are as you're making that decision in the sorting. Let's move on to the next step. In the next step is plan. So we said do, we've said sort, and now we're talking about plan. This is where you decide and you're certain about what your larger goals are of the unit. So you don't want to get in the trap of remediation. You guide your thinking, and it's always guided by the grade level standard, not this idea of remediation. So you also want to make sure that you're thinking about the students. And sometimes when you're looking at student work, you may want to call the student back up just for a quick conference to help them, let them explain their thinking before you make those decisions about exactly where to scaffold. But this step here is where you actually look at the goal of the lesson or the unit and make sure that it's connected to the grade level standard. So now that we've kind of taken a snapshot of all three of those, let's collectively think about the options. So there are options of what you can do in your plan. The first thing that you want to do, and we can move forward looking at those options. Thank you. In those options, we can decide whether or not we want to engage the students in different ways. You want to find those opportunities for students to refine their thinking, and you want to also give them the opportunity to observe other students and hear the thinking of other students. You also want to, in the planning process, give brief feedback. And I want to re-emphasize brief and immediate feedback. And there's also ways to address this by developing those small group opportunities where you can group the students that have similar needs. So now that we've looked at this, looking at the third step of plan, let's think about putting it all together. Here is an example that you see of a plan and how it looks after it's been sorted. So I'm going to pause for just a minute here to give you a minute of private think time to read through this particular plan. And then I'm going to ask you to share a key takeaway, something that you notice about this plan. I'll repeat that again. Pause for a minute, review the plan, and then share a key takeaway in the chat box that you noticed about the plan. The plan focuses on strengths. Thank you for starting us off. Julie. The strengths are listed. Thank you, Elisa. I see Kathy chiming in as well. And data-driven ideas. Actually, thank you. Moving students forward who have the skills, the benefits from the scaffolding from the start. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts in the chat. In a moment, we're going to actually take some time to actually practice actually doing a do, sort, and plan ourselves. And that was one of the reasons why we asked you to identify yourselves specifically. So now that we've looked at the do, sort, plan framework, here's your opportunity to practice the do, sort, plan activity. In the note catcher, you're going to see links to specific grades. We're asking that you either select grade 2 math, grade 5 math, or grade 8 math, or grade 5 ELA. And you're going to click on the link for that. You're going to look at the student work and investigate the student work. You're also going to, but before you do that, we're asking that you complete the task yourself, because you want to approach it from the mind of a student. And then after you complete the task yourself, then you're going to look at the student work, and you're going to sort that student work based on student performances. All assumptions are open. Assume whatever you need in order to sort the work. And then lastly, you're going to create a plan of what you would do next to address the issues in an upcoming small group lesson. So remember, you're going to do the work. That's the do. You're going to do the tasks you see. Then you're going to see samples of student work. You're going to sort those. That's the sort. And then you're going to plan for an upcoming lesson. You're going to have 8 minutes here to do this. And you're at that time, we're going to go off camera. If you would choose to do so, it's going to be private time for you to work. And when you, my voice will bring us back together. And then we will have an opportunity to head into, you're going to actually be placed in breakout groups to discuss your findings.
And Thelma, just to jump right in before folks get to work, thank you for that amazing introduction to the task. Just to note that in the note catcher on, let's see, on page 6, there's 2 templates that you might use to do your do, sort, and plan into. There's template A and template B. So you can select one of those to capture your thinking in, or you can create your own template as long as you do the task, sort it, thinking about strengths, and then lastly, come up with a plan for next steps. Thank you, Thelma.
Absolutely. Thank you, Margaret. At this time, we're going to take the next 7 minutes here to work independently. So we'll come back at 13 after the hour. Coming back together in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. If you would make sure that you're muted and turn your cameras back on if you can. Now we're going to prepare to move into breakout groups so that you can share your findings. Things that you want to discuss in your breakout groups are the actual action plans that you came up with, but you want to also discuss the strengths and the growths. So you've had private think time, now you'll have some group collaboration time. And if we're ready, we're going to move to breakouts, and we'll stay in breakouts for 7 minutes. So as we're coming back from our breakout groups, we're going to now take an opportunity to debrief whole group, and we're going to review the findings by grade. And we want to make sure that we have an opportunity to affirm all of your work. So even if we're talking about a grade level that you didn't necessarily present, we're asking you to be sure to listen so that you can hear the action steps and the thinking and see how it possibly aligned to what you were thinking as well. We're going to start with grade 2. Is there anyone who is willing to put their name in the chat box that would like to share their thinking around the grade 2 math?
So while I was looking at the 2nd grade math, what I was noticing is that the skill that they were lacking was the repeat addition. And that was something that was missing in a couple of the students. And also just simple math problems. One of the kids was able to group the 4s, 2 4s into 8, and then the 3 into 12. But then once they tried to put them together, they said 19. So I definitely would group some of those children together and maybe have them do some practice with small groups or pairs. Like I said, when I was doing third grade last year, I had tents for multiplication where my lower kids could have the answer to the problem. My other kids would flip it over and they didn't. And they would ask each other. And even having the lower kids hear it, they were learning that way. And the kids that were able to get that skill and develop it, they were learning by thinking it through and what was the answer. So I would do something like that with repeated addition for extra practice.
So we're going to transition now to discuss the grade 5 ELA findings. So just quick show of thumbs if that was you and what you discussed. Looks like I was in a breakout with some of you, so thank you for that. So I am just going to go ahead and stamp our findings for grade 5 ELA, which was that students were generally able to find evidence to show why the young boy was distracted. 2 out of the 3 students only selected two pieces of evidence, right? So what I would do is to model whole group a student who selected 3 pieces of evidence and discuss why that's correct. And lastly, I would check in with the one student one-on-one to ask them to find evidence and discuss why that piece of evidence is most relevant for their open-ended response. And Thelma, if you want to just share any last thinking around the other math tasks, I'm happy to pick up after that.
Thank you. Absolutely. So just quickly, for those that's looked at the 5th grade math task, thinking about the areas of struggle here would definitely give the students additional practice on finding different denominators and working with benchmark fractions other than 1/2, so that they could justify their understanding of the whole and give them opportunities to practice using the greater than, less than, and equal symbols, as well as working with visual models and precise language. And to stamp for 8th grade, because there were a few students here who also struggled and there wasn't necessarily any just solid exemplars, we want to give them extra opportunities to practice with the slope formula and finding slope, because all 3 of them did not have accuracy with finding using the slope formula itself. And so giving them opportunities to decontextualize in word problems to find the slope would be the suggested way to support them. So back to you, Margaret.
Thank you so much, Thelma. Appreciate that. So excellent work and conversations today, thinking about the do sort plan technique. And moving forward, just continue to reflect on how using do sort plan supports learning acceleration and providing strong learning acceleration instruction for all of your students moving forward into the school year. So we've arrived at the end of our session and our series for today. So excellent work today. Thank you so much for taking the time to attend, whether today was your first session or whether you've been with us from the start. We're truly grateful for your work, partnership, and collaboration. Please do complete the survey in the chat and let us know what worked, what changes you would like to see moving forward, and any questions that remain. So with that, we do say thank you, thank you, thank you, and please keep in touch and let us know how we can be supportive to you and your students in the future. And lastly, we will be here for the next 3 minutes to answer any questions. We'll continue to put that survey in the chat, and it's also at the bottom of your note catcher. Thank you again, and we appreciate your time.